Jobkeeper is hiding unemployment. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.Heise here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. I have my morning stein of coffee, and I thought we'd have a look at this article written by Alexis Carey discussing the impact of Jobkeeper on the unemployment rate. Essentially, well, it's hiding the real impact. Now, what I'll do is I'll bring up the current unemployment rate, guys, and it's, well, not looking particularly hot. You can see here it shot up to over 6.2%. And this is using the ABS's methodology. There are other providers of unemployment numbers out there, and we'll look at them in a moment. But first, let's go through this article, because, well, I know Rachel, my wife, was talking to a neighbor the other day, and he's saying, Jobkeeper, it was just, it's, you know, of course they've just put it in to hide the real unemployment. And her friend had a sudden realization, bloody hell, you're right. So, let's check this out. The unemployment rate rise, what true figures mean for the future. Australia's devastating job figures have just been revealed, but one baffling number managed to hide the true extent of the carnage. Australia received the heartbreaking news that almost 600,000 workers had lost their job in just 1 month yesterday. 600,000 workers. And we still have property pundits saying housing will go up, housing will go up. There's talk of pulling back Jobkeeper. How many of these businesses do you think are going to rebound? How many of these businesses do you think are going to borrow to keep their workforce, expecting it to rebound because they're buying into everything they're hearing in the news, and then get an unpleasant surprise in a few months' time? But at the same time, the unemployment rate had only jumped by 104,000, taking it to 6.2% compared to the previous month's 5.2%. On the surface, that mere 1% difference doesn't seem too disastrous. Well, yeah, because it's unrealistic. It's only on the surface. But the reality of the current jobs market is far more complicated and far more worrying. So the data. I mean, this is good that this is actually being discussed on news.com.au. You know, it's fantastic that more and more people will be made aware and start to think about this. Because, you know, the sad thing is most people will just see the headline and believe it. You need to, you know, just take that first layer off the onion and look at what's underneath. According to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, seasonally adjusted employment fell by 59,300 people between March and April. This equates to about 19,810 jobs lost each day during that period. Unemployment increased by 104,000 people to 823,000. The unemployment rate increased by 1% from 5.2 to 6.2, and total hours worked fell by around 9.2% between March and April. So, let's have a look. We'll look at that after. The truth behind the 1% jump. The ABS explained that the comparatively small jump in unemployment, even as almost 600,000 jobs were lost, was a result in a drop in people actively looking for employment. Now, here you have it. This is the difference. It's to do with the methodology. If you're unemployed, but you're not actively looking for work during the survey period that they ask you to do, and I'll bring this up right now. Hang on. I'll just bring up the ABS so we can see when the survey actually occurred. So if you're not actively looking for work, according to the survey, during the period, the data period or the collection period, we have it here. This chart shows it to us. If you're not looking for work in April, between the end of March and this part of April, okay, then you're not considered unemployed even if you're not working. So how many people on Jobkeeper do you think would be looking for work? Most of them, I bet, wouldn't, because they've still got a job. They've still got a job. They're still getting paid. They're not feeling that urgency, so they're not looking for work. And remember, this is when the data was released here, on the 14th of April. So we're looking at data from March and April now. On the 14th of May. So it's out of date. You think they could release this May data a lot quicker Why doesn't it take 5 days to get the data out? But still, even here, if you're not actively looking for work, but you're unemployed, you're not considered unemployed. You're not part of the workforce anymore, guys. That's another scary aspect, is that people have enough, leave the workforce, getting them to re-engage can be difficult. And we have here, this is the Roy Morgan data, and what I consider most important is this number here. So this is April for 2020. Notice, look at March. They released an early data, late data set, total. So, they've got here this number, 24.7%, nearly 25. That is the combined unemployment and underemployment. Oh, and another thing too about the ABS. If you do 1 hour of work a week, I think it's a week, I hope it is, then you're considered employed. 1 hour. So yeah. The large drop in employment did not translate into a similar size rise in the number of unemployed people because 489,800 people left the labour force, said Bjorn Jarvis, head of labour statistics at ABS. See, this is the thing. There's no problem with reporting it like this, but then you need to give us the other number, showing how many people left the labour force, adding those to it. The spike in people leaving the labour force also meant the participation rate plummeted by 2.4% to 63.5%. Crucially, Australians who are not participating in the labour force are not considered to be unemployed, nor are those who have been stood down, but who expect that they may keep their job in the future, therefore driving down the overall rate. So there you go. The people who have been stood down or who are on Jobkeeper, they still think they've got a job to come back to. And what happens if they don't? So all the people who are saying, get in the property, FOMO, FOMO, I ask you, what's going to happen when these people rock up to work and all of a sudden realize they don't have a job anymore, or their business is cut back? Sorry, we don't need 10 people anymore, we only need 2. Work hasn't come back, sorry, got to let you go, I'll call you if something comes up. Then what's going to happen to property? Then you also have that 6-month bank reprieve from your mortgage repayments disappears. And all of a sudden, oh, wait a minute, your repayments have gone up because there's the interest on the interest. So they want to keep you paying in the same time period. Your payments are going to go higher. Given the widespread government restrictions that have forced businesses to close, it is believed many out-of-work Aussies have hit pause when it comes to trying to find a new job, as there's simply no point at the moment. Exactly. Well, yeah. What's the point? EY chief economist Joe Masters said the situation was likely to get worse before it gets better, despite the easing of restrictions. While the low participation rate cushioned the rise in the unemployment rate, which jumped to 6.2%, well below expectations of 8.3%, this figure is not good news, given it is driven by people leaving the workforce, she explained. Indeed, this data suggests getting people back to jobs will be even more challenging, as they will first need to be enticed back into the workforce and then find a job. And Callum Pickering, APAC economist at global job site Indeed, said the figures did not pass the pub test. They did not do justice to the economic destruction. Well, here's the thing. The figures have always been a bit untrustworthy. It's just the methodology they've used. They're statisticians. They're not marketers, are they? I mean, just look at the bloody website. I think this number here needs to be on the news. They need to provide both cases and let people know their methodology isn't the be-all and end-all. There are other approaches. Most people have never done statistics at university or even, probably even at high school, so they don't appreciate it. Australia's underutilisation rate jumped to 19.9%, with the unemployment rate rising to 13.7%, while hours worked fell by 9.2%. That does a better job than the unemployment rate of measuring the economic impact of the pandemic, he said. So the underutilization rate jumped 20%. So there you go. I mean, that's much more in line with what we're seeing from the Roy Morgan approach. Employment fell by 594,300 in April, but unemployment jumped by only 104. That obviously doesn't pass the pub test. Well, the problem is we can't go to the pub anymore. I'm looking at going to the German club with the boys again and having a few beers. I'm tempted, I really need to, I think. Due to methodology, which doesn't always sit well with reality, 489,000 people simply left the Australian labour force in April. Had the size of the labour force held steady, with everyone losing employment shifting to unemployment, then the unemployment rate would have spiked to 9.6%. So nearly 10% unemployment. That seems a little bit more realistic, doesn't it? The rate of unemployment would also be much higher in the absence of the Jobkeeper wage subsidy. The subsidy is imperfect, failing to cover vulnerable casual workers, but it has preserved the connection between businesses and employees. Well, you can also preserve the connection between businesses and employees with a phone call that isn't costing the civilization a tremendous amount of money and isn't putting another burden on businesses that have to front load this thing. But, people haven't prepared for hard times in Australia. We've had it too good. People just haven't been prepared. It's a wake-up call for a lot of people. So, Jobkeeper. Meanwhile, the 6 million odd Australians now, 6 million, now receiving the Jobkeeper wage subsidy, are also not factored in, even if they're working 0 hours. Speaking to ABC News yesterday, Grattan Institute's Danielle Wood said that has significantly masked the true extent of the economic damage caused by the pandemic crisis. Well, is that a brilliant move to maintain consumer confidence, or are we not buying for it? Or, I can appreciate the fact that the state has forced businesses into this situation, and they're doing this to mitigate some of the damages to the business and maintain their ability to bring their workforce back. I completely appreciate that. And honestly, it's probably the best of a worst situation. You're never gonna get it right. They've dug this hole now and they've got to try and dig out of it. But the thing is, there's more and more talk about increasing migration, guys, into the country when we've got high unemployment. It just feels like they want to get property going again. That's all they've got. They've got. So maybe we should increase migration, sure, but let's get nuclear physicists, scientists here so we can develop some, more advanced industries and then create special economic regions to do it. Maybe the goal should be, wouldn't you love to see leaders come in and say, okay, the goal in the next 10 years is to cut the cost of living for Australians in half. This is how we're going to do it. We're going to implement this. We're going to scale back our taxation by this. We are a burden on you, citizens. We realize that. We're going to pull back. You think we'll ever hear that rhetoric? Maybe I'm dreaming. Maybe it doesn't pass the pub test. During a press conference following the release of the ABS figures, Prime Minister Scott Morrison also touched on whether the exclusion of Jobkeeper disguised the true story. When you get underneath the numbers, I think what you'll see is the estimates that Treasury put together earlier are reflected in these numbers, he said. While the headline rate is just over 6%, when you have almost 600,000 people exit employment, that is a devastating set of numbers. And when you look at hours worked and all of those issues as well, what you do see is an even deeper impact. Meanwhile, Treasurer Josh Frydenberg said it was a tough day and that figures were heartbreaking, but that Australia had confronted this global pandemic, this economic shock from a position of economic strength. He's always saying that. I don't tend to agree with it. I think we've had a property bubble. I think our economic strength is highly dependent on a few sectors, on export of natural resources, on international tourism, which has taken a huge hit, on international education, which has taken a huge hit, on states completely dependent on stamp duty, where property flipping can cause an issue. So let's have a look at the issues to the budget. GDP down 10%, household consumption down 16%, business investment down 18%, dwelling investment down 18%. Household savings has increased, and Treasury will deliver an updated fiscal outlook in June. There you go. Job ads are down 50%. Biggest fall in constructions. New motor vehicles down 48%. House sales down 40%. International and domestic travel down 97%. Jobs down 7.5%. Wages bill paid by businesses down 8.2%. Accommodation and food service sector lost 33.4% of jobs. Arts and recreation lost 27%. V-shaped recovery, anyone? As always, please let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Where do you think it'll turn? How are you preparing to deal with this? Have you left the job in the labour force? Because it's not really worth it. Maybe you have to create your own things. Find other opportunities. Hey, even scrap metal is a way to make money. As always, let me know your thoughts and opinions below. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and you'd like to support us, there are a few ways you can. You can join the channel on YouTube or Patreon. You can support us via our affiliate links at Amazon or eBay, or Independent Reserve and Kucoin. You can use Gold Path from the Perth Mint, buy a merch from HeiseSays, or support us on PayPal. Thanks everyone. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.